Welcome to the Life is Relationships podcast, where we share biblical truths about marriage, parenting, and discipleship. The desire of CTCI is to see the hearts of individuals and families restored in their relationship to the Father, and for them to be empowered to have thriving, godly relationships that impact the communities around them. I'm your host, AJ Selby, and on today's episode, Larry Pons joins us to talk about how so many men, myself included, can easily get our priorities as men backwards from how God intended for us to live our lives. Take a listen. Well, hey, Larry, thank you again for joining us.
It is good to be here, AJ, as always.
Larry, you have a teaching that you do about the role of the husband in the home and how so many men today have got their priorities out of order and yet they don't even realize it. Can you share that teaching with us today?
I can, AJ, be glad to. And this is what we call the plan of the head of the household, for godly head of the household. And it's a simple expression, and we use our hands. I use my hand. And when I'm standing in front of an audience, I'll hold my hand up with my thumb pointed straight up and the four fingers out to the side. So, I use the thumb as the vertical relationship, and that's our vertical relationship with the Lord. And this is the head of the home. He has this vertical relationship with the Lord in place. And then it's walked out in the horizontal relationships, the four fingers. The first finger, the top finger, is in the role as a husband. The second finger, which is his role as a father. And the third finger, which is usually the ring finger, is the priestly and prophetic and kingly roles that he holds, that God has given him in that capacity. And the last role on the little finger, the bottom finger, is provider. And so that is a very simple form of what God's purpose and plan is for the head of the household. But the world has done a very interesting thing. And so, as I'm speaking to any audience, I automatically do this and I make them all look and I say, watch my hand. And I turn my hand upside down.
Hmm.
And what the world has done is put these things in reverse order. In other words, what we usually look at as the head of the home is that he's the provider.
Yeah.
Is first, and then the next thing is especially if he's a Christian or a godly man, he's spiritual. You know, this priestly, kingly roles and his role in the church or whatever, and then usually the children come next, and the wife is last. But the point is that if any one of these roles are out of order, they're out of the will and plan of God, and it really causes a chaotic set of circumstances in his life as head of the home.
Hmm. And this is something that can so easily, um, depending on your season, this can happen regularly without people even recognizing it.
Absolutely. I mean, the pressures of life put us in these places. I mean, no one, I'm not saying providing is not important, it's extremely important in God's plan. Yet, it does not come in front of the reason that we're working and providing is so that we can take care of these other things that are important in our household.
Yeah.
Giving provision, feeding our families, taking care of those we love the most.
Yeah. Just to share a story from my experience, when Amy and I left and we moved to Nashville, and I was going to school, and I was driving Uber on the side. I started driving Uber in the evenings just so to have a little extra income, and then things started getting really tight, and we definitely felt the pressure financially, and so I, without even knowing it, I had done that exact thing, and I had flipped my priorities without even realizing that I did it. And this exact teaching came to mind one night. I had, the way that my schedule looked is that I would go to school and I'd be home for a couple hours to do a little bit of homework and have dinner with Amy. And then I would go out and I would drive till 2 o'clock in the morning because I felt the pressure that I needed to provide. I
Mhm.
needed to
That's correct.
do that for us, for my wife. And yet it had gotten to a place where that was the primary driver. And I had flipped those priorities. And there was one night in particular that um, I didn't have a great feeling about going out, but I was like, no, I need to go out and drive. Amy didn't have a good feeling about me going out. And so we weren't in agreement about it. So that was strike number one. But I go out and I start driving, and I end up sitting in the car lot at the airport for 3 hours. The Lord parked me in the cell phone lot of the airport for 3 hours. And every time I would try to put it in drive, I'd be like, I'm just going to go pick up someone somewhere else. I feel that the Lord told me, park it. And I sat there and I dealt with my attitude with the Lord until I finally softened enough to realize what I had been doing. And I felt Him say, the rides you gave tonight have covered the gas that you wasted with your misaligned priorities.
Hmm.
Go home and be with your wife.
The pressures of life hit us all the time. Provision is extremely important, but not at the expense of that relationship,
Yeah,
not at the expense of our family, children. You have to weigh the fact which is more valuable, which is more rewarding. If we put things in the right order, God will take care of these things. He says this in His Word. But when we get them out of order, especially the provider, and I'm not undermining the fact of providing. Matter of fact, I think that we need to be working and we need to be providing.
absolutely.
But again, not at the expense. The reason that we do that is to take care of our families. It is not our identity. And many heads of homes have made their work their identity. And the children or the family is a burden on them rather than the other way around. So we need to be very careful.
Well, Larry, thank you so much for just really and very, very simply explaining what the head of the household, what our roles and responsibilities should be, and the priority that that should take.
God laid it out a long time ago, AJ.
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one, and we would love if you left us a review. For more information about CTCI and our upcoming programs, be sure to check out ctcilife.org. This podcast is a production of Christian Training Center International. It is produced by AJ Selby, Rebecca Wall, and Seth Stradling. It is edited, mixed, and mastered by AJ Selby.